So before I launch into this, I just want to take a moment to express so much gratitude to all of the presenters today for sharing about your experiences and what you've learned. I thought this was wonderful, so thank you very much. If we can give them a round of applause. So I'm going to tell you a bit about an effort we are starting right now around academic retention. And so I'm cheating a little bit because of the theme in the classroom doesn't quite work here, but this was an opportunity to bring together people who would show up on a Thursday afternoon at 3:30 to talk about student success. So you are kind of a key audience. And so with that in mind, hopefully you all got the handout, and you know me, well, if you know me, you know I'm always so cheap about printing out on paper. So if I'm going to print out on paper, I'm going to get a lot out of it. So on one side is a quick survey about this event and to get some ideas for our next event. And then on the back is an opportunity to get some of your feedback about what we're talking about in terms of the academic retention plan. So the academic retention plan is something we are launching this quarter, planning for it this quarter, with the goal of, by fall, having identified a limited number of levers that we want to really concentrate on from the academic side of the house to improve student success and student retention. There are a lot of drivers of this, but one serious driver is looking at our graduation rates over time. I want to start by saying our graduation rates are not terrible. Our graduation rates are not something that, compared to the national average, is really that bad. And we all hold a very deep responsibility to improving those retention and graduation rates. So, for example, on the left here, we have our transfer rates, and I'll draw your attention to this terrible light gray line, which is our four-year graduation rate, which hovers in the 80s for our transfer students. This line, this gray line here, is our six-year graduation rate for our first-time in college students who continue to have about the national average graduation rate. And so these have stayed pretty stable for quite a bit of time, despite all of us. I feel like we're all kind of riding on a bicycle in low gear, doing everything that we can think of to help with retention. We are working really hard on this. Two messages. Our graduation rate is not something we should be embarrassed of, but is something we are responsible to. And the second message is we're all working really hard on this. And we need to figure out a way to get into a higher gear and to work together to try and identify what we're going to work on in the short term and focus on, and what we're going to prioritize. So, to guide the strategic priorities of student success and partners, to focus our work over the next 2 years on changes that will improve the student success of all UW-Tacoma undergraduate students. This is focused on undergrads for now. That will change over time. So, we have three main goals: to define some meaningful metrics that we're going to have sort of a common language of what it is we are trying to move the needle on, and hold ourselves accountable to improvement in those metrics. To identify top barriers to UW-Tacoma student completion from an institutional perspective. From our perspective, what are the barriers for students being retained and graduating? And then commit to a limited number of things that we're going to work on together to try and impact student retention. Understanding that this is the sort of academic side of the house, we're going to work very closely with our partners from Student Affairs, because I think we all know that many of the barriers to student success occur outside of the classroom. That's very well understood, I think, by everyone in this room. So this is kind of the process and where we are right now. We're focused on this environmental scan phase, where really what we're trying to do, we've done this a couple of times as a group. We've met in here with a number of the people who are sitting around the tables. We've had a student success task force, a student success council, a range of different ways we've organized ourselves to get at some of these issues. So we're going to start with an environmental scan, and I'll explain what that is in a moment, but really focus on being evidence-based and doing our due diligence with data and going out and talking to students. And then we're going to get together. Once we have that sort of evidence-based foundation that we can work together to try and prioritize a limited number of things, with a goal of when we get back next fall, being ready to be biking in high gear. I'm looking at Cindy because I'm using a lot of biking references. So, environmental scan, really focusing on quantitative data analysis, carefully disaggregated, incorporating multiple data sources. And this, to me, is like manna from heaven. We have the clearinghouse data on where students are transferring to. And so characterizing students as enrolled here, graduated from here, transferred to somewhere else, and not enrolled here. Because that transferred to somewhere else, in many cases, is very much a success, right? And so starting with that and that sort of baseline data. Then we're going to do some student outreach with current students and with student leavers and with some alumni. And then we're going to have our open campus conversations. So you might not hear from me on this and a group that's working on this for a little bit because we're going to try and do that scan first. So in terms of the data sources, I recognize that this is very small text. I want to acknowledge Marian Larocque, who many of you know from the TLC. She's a recent graduate of UW-Tacoma, is working for me half-time, trying to help wrangle all of these data. But once we have some idea of student by student, sort of where they're at right now, trying to bring in a range of different factors, demographics, major, part-time, full-time, a range of different things, including things like holds. Participation in HIPS is one that we are now able to do now that we've got these S and R class designations coming on board, online learning, that kind of thing. Things that we have in SDB but are kind of hard to bring together. Then there's all sorts of data outside of SDB. TLC is recording the number of visits. Advisors have a scheduling software that we can mine some data and see how often are students visiting their advisor and how does that correlate to student success. How often are they participating in programs like CSF or the Center for Service and Leadership? Things like care team and academic alert data. UAA has quite a bit of outreach data, as do some other majors. So trying to bring this all together and have a more sort of evidence-based look at student success. Do you want to get involved? Does that sound like something that is interesting to you? I could really use some help on a couple of things. So if you know me, you know the sort of big data, quantitative data set side is more of my strength. I've talked to some about the possibility of helping me with focus group design or survey design or qualitative data analysis, because it's really important in a case like this to be collecting and using qualitative data. Do you have a data source that I didn't mention here that you think might help us better understand student success? When those open sessions come out, you guys are like the key people, right? You're the people who came here today. I want to see you again when we have those open sessions, and we'll try and schedule them multiple times so that you can make it. And then help us spread the word with students, because the key to this whole endeavor is to make it incredibly student-focused and to center student voice. To really make sure we're doing our due diligence to understand the student experience. There are some possible other ways that we could get together to talk about some of these issues. I've been playing around with the idea of a student success reading group, and if that's something that you're interested in, please reach out to me and help partner with me to make that happen. And I will be continuing, I'm like 8 or 9 months into this job, to be reaching out for future opportunities. I saw a lot of nods about the Student Success Reading Group, so please do email me and we'll get that going. So I just want to end with this message that this is supposed to be about action. We are not going to spend a year defining what we mean by student success. I think we could do with a clearer definition, but I think we, in our guts, know what it is that we're trying to do. What the effort here is about action. It's about figuring out what are the things that if we push on those things now, 2 years from now, we'll look at those graphs and start to see some movement on them. And that's it for me.